Today I'm talking to Cynthia Gladis, a longtime Frames member and a photographer known for capturing the world with humor, irony, and a fine art sensibility. Her work was featured in the 10th edition of Frames, and today we will be looking at 5 of her photographs together. I hope very much you will enjoy our conversation. So, Cynthia, again, once again on frames here, we have talked, a couple of times before, right? But
Mhm.
I keep coming back to your photography because it's great images. Every
Well,
single
thank
time you
you.
share an image,
Thank you.
it's interesting, it's inspiring, and you have such a good eye. I just love your images. So we selected
Thank you.
5 today,
Okay.
right, to talk about.
Mhm.
Some of them I imagine are from a while ago, but some of them are newer.
Yeah.
Let's start with this one. I mean, such a geometrical, an image full of
Mhm.
geometry, lines, shapes. Tell us whatever you want to share with us about this image.
Oh, I could say quite a bit about this image because this reflects my pandemic shooting. Well, first let me start by saying I am a graphic designer, so I'm drawn to these kind of geometric scenes and lines and angles and things like that. So during the pandemic, it was 2020, which was right around the time I joined Frames actually. We were supposed to be on lockdown and not going out or anything. Well, I took that to mean okay, but Cindy can go out in her car and drive to an empty mall and shoot. So that's what I did. I spent a lot of time in empty shopping malls. I like this type of urban photography or suburban. This happens to be a Target, which people probably can tell. But it was one of the few times in my life that I've seen places so devoid of people and cars. And oh, I just had a field day. I went crazy. So this was Target. I call this one Target triangulation because I just saw the three things. They're not in a triangular form, obviously, but between the lines and that those balls they put outside to keep people from driving onto the sidewalk, I was like, woohoo! Thank you, Target. So I just like the way the items lined up. Some of those red Target shopping carts ended up in quite a few of my photos from that time period. But that's about it for that one. I mean, I didn't have the challenges I normally have when there are cars around because I could stand anywhere in the parking lot and compose this. So that's what I did. So and I like
When
the color. So
Yeah, I was wondering, where does it kind of start for you? Noticing the potential for a photograph. So, like for example, with this kind of scene, do you remember or can you recall, like, is it like you start, you notice a single one of those objects here in the frame, or you kind of absorb the entire scene, immediately as a frame, or it starts somewhere with one of those elements for you?
yeah, I think it starts with me just looking for things like this. I like to wander around and just look. So when I see something like this, I did do a very mini series, 3 or 4 photos of just that ball with different, I got one in snow, I get them at different angles. So I did see this though as whole cloth. I saw the scene and I shot it like this. There was a lot of this type of shooting during the pandemic because I had the ability to just go anywhere, and it just scenes like this make me really happy because I do stand there and work the scene and I post process, I crop, I readjust and everything, but I stand there and I take my camera and I find my best composition. So this is one of the types of shooting I like to do the best
Yeah, I
when
was
there are
about
no cars and people.
you mentioned composition. I was actually about to ask you about, okay, you notice the scene and there is, 178 million ways of composing, of framing this kind of scene. Do you work this scene a lot? Like you walk around from different angles and observe it and then decide on this final one?
Yeah, but what's kind of interesting to me is that usually if I do say 4 or 5, I don't go crazy with it unless it's something I know I'll absolutely, oh my gosh, I'll never see again. And then I go really crazy with it. But a scene like this, I might shoot three, four, five. And what always makes me laugh is that when I bring them into Lightroom, it's the first one that I shot that usually ends up being the one I keep. So the others are sort of, maybe it'll be a little better this way, maybe it'll be a little better that way. But I usually go back to my first one.
So the instinct wins, right?
Mhm.
In that.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's talk about this one. What's this scene here?
Okay. This photo is from my series that I call Through a Train Window. I've taken lots of train trips to New York, and I get bored sitting on the train seeing the same thing over and over. So at the time, I had a Fuji X70, and boy, did I love that little camera. And I started shooting out of the window. And in the beginning, it was kind of like spray and pray. I would just sort of put it on 1,000 as the shutter speed and click out the window. And I actually had a woman once tell me to please turn my electronic shutter on because she got sick of hearing me click the shutter. So it's going click, 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 click. But what started to happen was I got really familiar with the route, and every time we would get on the train, I'd be like, oh, I know what's coming up around the bend. Let me get ready. So there's this area, I think this is Elizabeth, New Jersey, where you see people's backyards. And I got a real kick out of the difference. And you think to yourself, I wonder if these people realize that there's a crazy woman on a train who can see our backyard. Because you always have like one yard that looks like a mess, a complete mess. You feel like, a bunch of crazy people live there. And next door, there's always somebody that's really clean and neat. And it kind of makes you wonder how they feel about their neighbors. So I have a few of this type of shot where I got the backyards together, and I like the juxtaposition of the clean yard next to the messy yard. The challenge with the shooting out of a train window is the composition, because even though I'm anticipating, there are some that I've gotten where it's over to the side, they go like this, they go like that. Obviously I straighten them a little in post and everything, but I was really pleased with this one that I got the two trees, I got the homes right in the middle, and even though it's a messy photograph, the composition is pretty clean, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And so those train trips, did you then start working on the entire series? How many images
Oh,
you have?
I have a lot. I have a lot of the same scenes in different weather. I love it when it snows and I can get some of them. Um, I never, did anything formal with the series, but it's ongoing. And now I've started enjoying sitting next to a dirty train window because it makes like a filter and I get an impressionistic view. There's just so much you can do with photography, Tomash. There's always something to shoot. There's always I like to make art out of what I see. Like it wasn't it Gary Winogrand who said, "I just want to see what it looks like photographed."
Yeah, that's actually what I love about your imagery,
Well,
Now,
thank you.
when it comes to those, places like this one, those two houses, do you tend to, because I can imagine you're sitting on the same train, several times a month or
Mhm.
whatever it might be. Do you then tend to photograph the same locations at different, seasons or,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, because I do anticipate there are stretches of the route from where I live in New Jersey to New York that there's really nothing to see except trees and dirt and, you know, um, garbage. And there are special areas that I do look for, and this happens to be one of them. But it's also the trains in New Jersey. I don't know if they're like this in other countries, but we have old ones, new ones. They're always the old trains are one level, and the windows are really old and everything. But the newer trains, it's like a double decker. So sometimes I sit up, sometimes I sit down. Depending on if I sit on the right or the left side of the train, it affects my view. So there is a little bit to play with. It's not like it's the same exact thing over and
Kind of,
over.
it kind of edges or it is maybe, and kind of documentary photography, right? It's
Yeah, that's about as documentary as I get. I
I
really,
think
because I'm shooting exactly what I see, and I'm not really changing it into something else. I did do a few double exposures, believe it or not. I think I used the X70 for that, and that was pretty cool because I knew what was coming up. I was able to quickly, overlay the next scene with the one I had, but that was a little too much.
Yeah. It also, poses many questions, exactly like you said. You start wondering who are the people living in this house, in that house, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
would be actually nice. It would be interesting to, once you maybe get off at one of those stations, and try to talk to those people, show them the photographs. It would be interesting
Oh,
to see the
I
the
don't think they'd be
reactions.
too happy.
Well, depends on the house, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Such a simple shot, but somehow
Yeah.
many stories and
Yeah.
in this
It's a
one.
hot mess. I don't know if anyone would want to hang it on their wall, but I think things like this are fun to look at.
Okay, let's switch to image number 3.
Oh, yes, this one. I remember this well. As I remember most most of the things I photographed pretty well. This was the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia. It's an art museum. It used to be in Marion, Connecticut, in an old mansion, and they ended up building a building for the collection in Philly. It opened in 2012, and I remember going to it when it opened. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a great showcase for artwork. They have the lighting done so that it looks like natural light coming in and it won't fade the paintings. It's just a beautiful place. But after I looked, I did my quick run through looking at the artwork. I had my camera with me, of course, and I got sick of taking pictures of people looking at artwork. Not my favorite thing to do. So I wandered around the outside of the building, and I don't know if you can tell here, but the bottom part is water on top of pebbles. And like looking at it, I'm sitting here at my desk looking at this about 18 inches away. It just looks like shading to me and geometry and lines and angles and stuff. But if you look at it closely, you see the water, you see the calm, kind of zen looking pebbles, and it was such a pretty scene. And they have the way the water goes around the building. It's almost like a moat, like in a castle, because the water just goes around, and they have the pebbles on the bottom. And I worked this scene quite a while. It was hard to eliminate. There were some trees, there were people. So I just kind of, I walk around, I move my camera, and then I look at it in post, and I get rid of all the people and the pesky
Yeah.
stuff. So I end up with a graphic. Now
Yeah.
that I look at it, I might have moved it over just a little bit, and now I'm getting critical of my own work. But I liked the color. You probably noticed I shoot a lot of color. I just love color. Getting it right, getting the white balance right, getting the color looking the way it looked to me when I saw what I saw. And
Mm.
I just thought this was pretty.
No, lovely. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, when seeing at when looking at your photographs, there is often much of this exactly balance, graphical elements. It's much thought going into what elements create the image in what way, what's the order. So it's probably this graphic designer background in you.
Yeah.
How do you react to photographs when looking at other people's work, which are more, I would say, messy or kind of unstructured, or maybe out of order? Do you enjoy them?
Oh yeah. And I've often said to myself, I wish I could do that. Like loosen up, and it's just not the way I shoot. It's not the way I do things. I like the order. I like to think my work is very clean because I like clean, I listened to an interview you did with me recently. The interview was a couple of years ago. It was about my gutted project, and I was listening to it again, and I was saying the same things. Like life is chaotic. I have a lot going on personally right now, and the photography is something I can kind of control. And there's something about sitting at my computer and relaxing and looking at what I got and thinking, oh, maybe I could make that. Some photos are just, it's wow, I'm happy with the photo and I process it and that's it. But other things, you spend a little more time and you're like, oh, maybe this would look good. And, and you learn from yourself in a way, like next time I might shoot it this way or that way. There's just something about photography that makes me very happy and calm. So this type of image definitely fits the bill for
Ah,
that.
isn't it a wonderful, this part of, what photography can become, is for us. It's very,
Yes.
very often depending on your life, it
Yeah.
becomes this kind of counterbalance or,
Hmm.
extension, or but it's always connected in some ways to what's actually happening in our lives. Yeah, in
Oh,
some way.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it.
Okay, let's jump to the next image.
Oh, okay. Um,
It's
yeah,
a new one, right?
this is a new one. Yeah. Um, this has become my current favorite that I'm just so happy that it came out the way it did because I've had a few people tell me it looks Edward Hopper-ish. And I used to not like being compared to others or, others' work or whatever, because I like to think I'm totally original and, but when it comes to Edward Hopper, if somebody tells me what my work looks Hopperish, I'm very excited because I love in painting, the way he used light and shadow, and had the light fall on people's faces. It just I love it. So when I saw this scene, I was at Newark Airport getting my global entry interview for an upcoming trip. So I brought my camera because I thought, oh, change of scenery. And I wandered around, the terminals and everything. And it was the first time I had taken the air train. And I was actually, this was at the end of, I was getting ready to go home. And I was on the air train across the platform from this one. And the doors opened, and it's like when you're on the subway and you see something, and you're like, oh my God, if I run out, can I run back on? I didn't want to take a chance. So I stood in the doorway. I saw the shadows that you see over to the right. I saw the shadows on the ground. I saw the people. So I kind of leaned out of the door. I think people thought I was crazy. I leaned out of the door and hung on so that I wouldn't fall out. And I didn't want to take a chance stepping out. So this one was a little gymnastically challenging for me to shoot. But I just fell in love with the light. And I thought, I got kind of a silhouette of the man getting on the train. I took a few, and this was the best because the guy was framed in that doorway. He was more of a silhouette, whereas the other one I didn't have the separation of the people and stuff like that. So I'm very deliberate the way I shoot. Even something like this that was click, click, click. Ooh, let me try to get this. I took three or four in rapid succession, but this was the one I was like, oh, thank goodness. And I was very happy with it. I had the white balance was a little challenging. The processing was a little challenging, but I made it, I thought I made it work, and I was pretty pleased with it. I have to say, I've been more into getting people in my shots since we did that frames weekend in New York because I got used to shooting people again, and I really enjoy it. They're still pesky humans, but
Sure. But it's interesting that you say you're kind of deliberate in your shooting, but at the same time, of course, a scene like this one, you have to react within, seconds or
yeah.
milliseconds. So you have this, um, mechanism inside you, or this sensitivity, to what's happening with the light, with the scene, that you can
Mhm.
react very quickly. So I guess by saying deliberate use, it's like you already know to which instinctive reactions to to react, to
I
immediately start shooting, because
That's
like
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, there is so many elements in this image that are great, like this dimensionality with this trash bin in the front, in the
Mhm.
front here, and the next guy and the train and the next guy and what's
Mhm.
happening with the light, behind the train, the light itself,
Yeah.
colors, everything. So, but you notice it in the split of a millisecond. It's
I this is the kind of thing I guess I'm programmed to look for scenes like this in my head because I like them so much. I mean, there are other things. I plenty of times, even on the train when I'm walking, I'll pass something and I'll think, ugh, I should have shot that, but I've given up beating myself up over it because there's going to be something else around the bend.
Mhm.
Um, but this, yeah, that was interesting that you said that because yeah, it's split second, but at the same time, like I notice a big difference in how I shoot now from when I started a little over 10 years ago. I don't think I had that split second recognition of what was good. It took me
Okay.
longer. Now
Mhm.
it's. I'm
Yeah.
glad you asked that. That was a good
Uh,
question.
Tell us about the square crop here.
It just worked better. I shoot I was using my I was using the little Canon, the one I brought to New York. And that's a the bigger the 2:3 ratio like a Fuji, and I like 4:3, and I usually crop to 4:3. But I always shoot at native resolution because you never know what's going to be on the sides. But this one, there were too many other distracting elements in it, and I really wanted to focus on the guy, the light, and the people over to the right, and the square just worked better. I
Mhm.
look at each thing individually. If I'm doing a series, I prefer that they're all the same aspect ratio, but once in a while you know, it just works better. So,
Mhm. Oh yeah, works perfectly here. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Image number 5 is the last one already,
Uh-oh, I think I know it.
and it's
Oh,
something different now.
the
Oh, I
My
love this one. I mean,
I
this is
know,
like
I
this is
know.
Cynthia Gladis, signature style. Yeah. So
That makes me happy. It really does. The fact that you like these so much made me very happy. I did talk about my sand series in a couple of frames things, and I don't know if I need to get into the cause of the I'll just make it really quick. I go to Hilton Head, South Carolina, a few times a year, and I brought my camera to the beach, and I got to the point where I was like, okay, it's getting more challenging to find interesting things to shoot on my walks. But I started noticing patterns in the sand from the tide, from the wind. I went out every day, so I started paying attention to, what happened when there was a rainstorm, a windstorm, things like that. And then I noticed the different coloration of the sand, and I did a little research and realized that the dark part of the sand is the result of these little ghost shrimp that live on the beach, and they flip themselves over and burrow down into the sand, and then they excrete pellets all over the sand, 500 a day. So you see these little, like, they look like little volcanoes on the beach with pellets around them. That's shrimp excrement. And it dries. And I just laugh because I see kids burying themselves in the sand. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing here, kids. But anyway, it makes the sand look very, very interesting. And this is actually, I think this has become my favorite too. It just was so, and I think I flipped this one because that's what I do. I'll shoot a pattern, I'll work on it, I clean it up, obviously, because seagulls don't care that I'm taking pictures of the sand. And after I might I turn it, I flip it, because it's interesting how different shadows look when you flip them. Like sometimes it's like an optical illusion. It looks like something is falling off one way, and then you flip it, and it looks completely different. But this was one of those. I still, when I'm looking at it now, I can't believe I got so lucky. Like the way that, because all I did was clean this up and adjust the toning. I mean, this is what was there. And the way that that line kind of curves down to the right, and then the one goes up above it, and the shading of that, I don't know. It's like, thank you.
yeah. So here, I am kind of. I was just now imagining you, walking this beach, for
Yeah.
an hour. If you walk on a sand for an hour, and observe it or whatever, it's like millions of possible opportunities for a abstract shot like this one, right?
Mhm.
So, do you shoot many images really? And
Would you like to see a screenshot of my
no,
Lightroom
it's
catalog?
fine.
I must have about 3,000 at this point. And every once in a while, if I'm having a period of, like, usually if I see, oh, there was one in particular, oh my gosh, it looked like a woman. I called it the siren. It looked like a woman's body and her rear end, and she had this, and I saw that and I'm like, oh my, I think I took 10 or 12 of those because I was afraid I was going to lose it. And I ran back to the house because I was so excited about it. But normally, I might see one or two that I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to go work on that one. But I just keep shooting. Like I see them and I shoot them and I collect them. And then I go back and revisit them other times. And, I have a lot though, because it's a never ending supply. Of course, I can never duplicate them. I get a lot of those things that look like trees, but I can never, it's like snowflakes,
Yeah.
no two are alike. So it's a very fun project, and I'm
Mm.
going back, I think, in March. I can't wait to do it again.
I remember we talked about the very first photograph that, from the Target, from the parking lot, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And you said you also shot a few, but then usually it's the first one, where
mhm,
which you in the end choose, and really prefer.
yeah,
So I can is it also the case here when you walk and shoot those 3,000 images, but actually you already know which ones kind of, which of those fragments are the most compelling, most interesting?
yeah, kind of. Like I said, I can't, like, some of them I can't wait to get, like, I think I say to myself, this is going to be a good one. But then there are others where I say that and then I bring them back and I look at them and I'm like, what was I thinking here? I don't even remember because they look. It's something, it's also the act of doing it that's magical to me. Like I put my AirPods in, I'm listening to music, it's sunset. I usually go out at sunset or sunrise, but I don't like to be on the beach in the middle of the day. So I'm walking along and it's beautiful and I'm listening to music and I'm listening to the ocean at the same, it's so magical that I will see something and say, "Oh, that's beautiful," And then I get back home and I'm like, "Nah, it's ugly."
Just
But at least I'm out there doing it.
make sure you're careful with your lenses and cameras, on windy days, right?
Oh yeah, it's like getting sandblasted. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
But
could
then
be.
on the other hand, of course, if it's windy, probably those patterns are changing all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Must be, yeah, I love this image. This is just a
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cynthia, thank you so much. That's it. We went through 5 images.
Yeah,
So
we did.
again, a nice portion of your work to share with the community and whoever might be watching.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, as usual, we stay in touch and thank you so much for sharing those stories
Okay.
with us.
Thank you.